everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Acceptable Accuracy with Tyler and Phil. I'm your co-host, Tyler.
And I'm your co-host, Phil, who is right now really hungry.
Are you
I have
really?
not. Yes.
Oh, that's
I
right, because you are a carnivore right now.
Yeah, my wife's got me a carnivore, and like honestly, when you just eat like eggs and like beef and chicken and like some pork all the time, it just gets boring after a while. So I just kind of
I
stopped
get
eating.
it. I used to back during my I don't even say bodybuilding but weird bodybuilding powerlifting days. Like I remember doing rice, chicken, and broccoli every day and weighing my peanut butter. So I got
That's crazy.
super bored of eating. So I
Did,
get it.
did you were you at least able to put like spices and stuff on it, or were you like avoiding that as well?
I can put spices. That I could do.
I get
So
salt.
that's fair. I
That's it.
do. I remember how scared I was of using like creamer and like sugar in my coffee
Yeah,
because
that's bad too, though. Yeah.
so just random things like that because I was like I'd rather eat my calories and drink it even though it'd be all 3 calories of it. But either way, and of course we are joined by our guest host as well, Kyle.
Hey everybody, I'm back.
And yes, he is. Kyle is back. And not only that, we actually have a fourth person on here for the first time ever. We actually have someone who is not part of our friend group. So we have Chris from Blackout Ballistics, and Phil was actually the one who got connected with Chris. So, Chris, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Chris. I'm from Blackout Ballistics. I represent a YouTube channel in Florida that's really helping shooters out there bridge the gap from going from daytime shooting to nighttime shooting.
That's awesome, man. So, Chris, how did you and Phil get connected?
So I think Phil was the one that posted on Reddit, kind of asking specific questions on getting into the competition style of night vision shooting. And I posted up a video that I had just made on Instagram, a short reel that talked about the newer version of Jerry 31s. And I think somebody had commented on that subreddit, hey, maybe try these out. But I really wanted him to understand that maybe that wasn't the best choice to start off with.
Yeah, that kind of led me down the like route of like the rest of your content. So I watched some of the Instagram stuff that you had, and then found your YouTube channel, and I found the information you had was very informative. And then like kind of what we were talking about in the pre-show a little bit. There's not a lot of like fluff in a good way, because a lot of times you're watching YouTube channels, they're all like, "Hey, welcome to my YouTube channel," and then they like go on for the next 5 minutes. You're like, "I want to know about the thing." And I appreciate about Chris was like he got like right kind of into it, and then was like uh, really practical information, digging into like the specific items that you had to know about getting into night vision, the cost of night vision, and the kind of stuff that I wish I had the opportunity to like consume in like one like video instead of having to like watch 12 different videos on YouTube to kind of pull out little nuggets here and there.
Mhm. Which is I
Absolutely.
find very
Yeah.
ironic because we literally just talked about our diets at the beginning of this episode.
I know we are very guilty of that. But I always feel
We,
like okay, I am guilty of that. It's bring the flavor at the beginning of it. But yes, you are correct. And now I feel bad.
why do you feel bad, man? You're good. It was just really funny when you're talking like we go straight. All right, I'm rabbit trailing now. All right, I'm not gonna do a whole psychology thing. But either way, what'd you say?
Just saying this fluff at the beginning of it. That was my fault.
No, dude.
But I'm always the one that does it.
But either way, so I guess we'll kind of dive straight into it. So, of course, I love what you said, how you're kind of bridging that gap from daytime shooting to nighttime shooting. So, what got you into nighttime shooting, Chris? I'd love to hear that story.
For me, I think it's just the nerdy side of things. I really do enjoy night vision. There's so much daylight that you can enjoy and so much that you can do during the day. I wanted to keep that going throughout the night. And night vision was always that cool, nuanced thing that I saw throughout movies, or, I was the one on YouTube looking up that type of stuff. And eventually I wanted to experience it myself.
So when you like first started getting into night vision, we'll kind of get into the gear a little bit here, but I'm just kind of curious, like obviously you shot before during the day, but what was that like first experience of like putting on a set of nods or a single tube or whatever it was? What was that like? Like what are the things that people can kind of expect to be the same, but also expect to be different?
I think they're going to have to expect everything to be different. Everything's cooler at night. I'll say that, especially with night vision. And
That's a
like
great way to
you
put it,
both are
man.
smiling right now, you'll both be smiling the same way. Whether it's pistol or rifle, it's always a good time. something memorable, at least for me, is just seeing how different it is using an IR laser or illuminator, or even just using a red dot at night. It might sound similar, but it's different in certain ways, and it's really interesting and appealed to me, at least when I kind of got into the night vision side of things.
Okay. No, that's really cool. I guess to give some context for our listeners as well, I personally have never shot at night. Phil, have you?
I have shot white light at night before, and that's it. And that was a
Okay.
few like defensive pistol.
Gotcha.
Competitions.
But then I know Kyle has shot at night before. So what about you, Kyle? What got you into nighttime shooting, or what started all of that for you?
So the first time I ever shot a gun in the dark was when I was in the Army.
Okay.
During basic training. It's definitely not something that you get really exposed to unless you seek it out. You know, nobody's, unless you got a gun guy like one of us in your immediate crew, you're probably not going to get an invitation to go shoot guns in the dark with people. Most of the time, the best way I've heard it described is it feels like you're doing something illegal.
I mean, I was kind of thinking that too when, of course, the topic of this discussion is nighttime shooting, night vision, or white light at night. And I kind of just think to myself, I don't even know where I could even do that myself personally right now.
Yeah, and it's but when I got into it on the civilian side of things, I mostly got into it because I wanted to increase my preparedness capabilities, and you know, the superpower of being able to see into the dark is pretty irreplaceable. And I mostly went. Unfortunately, I didn't know Chris at the time I was hunting and purchasing night vision, so I kind of just went with my gut and on the word of some very helpful salespeople. And I was just looking for something that had the similar or slightly better capabilities of what I had in the Army, because I did a lot of driving, a lot of shooting under the the standard green phosphor uh, PVS 14s that I was issued, and those worked fine for me. I wasn't looking to get into the dual tubes or, God forbid, quad nods, because I'm not going to take out a second mortgage. But they, it was mostly just to increase my capabilities, and I didn't even really realize at the time that night vision matches were really something that happened. Mostly everything I'd done on the civilian side with night vision has just been, like the Friday night before the zombie match, just shooting some steel targets with friends, or maybe going out and like hunting hogs or something like that, but never really anything competitive.
Hey Kyle, you bring up a great point, and I think for a lot of listeners out there, if you want to get into night vision, you don't have to get into it solely for shooting. You talk about increasing your capabilities. A lot of people who are into shooting are also into preparedness, and with that comes usually a small group of however many members or a little village that they work with. We'll use that for a simple example. Anything that you're doing during the day, you're doing at night. So if you mentioned driving, some people out there have to do water acquisition and that type of stuff. Sometimes you have to do that at night. That night vision capability is what sets you apart from the daytime folks.
Yeah, absolutely, and that played a bit of a part in my selection as well. I got a Photonis Echo, mostly because it was a really good price on Black Friday, but also because the company that I was working with, I told them my environment is pretty suburban. I wanted something that would handle ambient light temperatures or ambient light and things like that, messing with the nods, because in my time in the Army, they did not auto gate very well. So if you had somebody shine a flashlight or somebody turn headlights on a vehicle, you were blind for a good 3-4 seconds before your night vision adjusted.
Oh man,
I've driven with my headlights on while wearing my Photonis Echo down Michigan Route 31 and had no problems. Now it's a tube, so anybody in Michigan law enforcement listening to this, I was not obstructed vision, but it did not impede me at all. But I was ready to take it off if it did.
Another reason we don't use last names on the podcast.
Yeah. You don't even know if that's my real name, guys.
Yeah, it's actually George.
No, it's Frank.
Oh, there we go. Oh man. Okay, no, that's really cool, Len. So, when was the last time you shot at night, Kyle?
January.
Okay, so fairly recent. Was it just something you were with some buddies, or were you actually at a competition?
No, it was with some friends. You bring up a great point, and that's definitely a question I had for Chris as well,
Mm-hmm.
because he shoots probably a lot more than I do at night. But I was down in Virginia visiting family,
Okay.
and my cousin lives in the middle of a hunting co-op, so he's got about 90 acres just surrounding his property, and we were able to do
That's
a little bit
awesome.
of shooting at night down there. But Chris, one question I had for you, a little bit of a rabbit trail off the intro stuff, but how, and we talked about this a little bit before, how do you find places to train with night vision?
Mm-hmm.
What's some steps that you take, or examples of property or environments that you're able to actually get out and do some live fire with your night vision?
Absolutely. I'd probably say that there's two sides to this. So the best way to do it is to check online, check Facebook, and see what local events are going on, especially for whatever's going on locally for your state. Now, there's subreddits that kind of get a little bit more specific, whether it's Michigan night vision shooting or Northwest night vision shooting, stuff like that. You're usually able to find events that way. On Practice Score, you can also find stuff, but the bad thing about Practice Score is sometimes events don't show up.
Hmm.
Whether they're doing an NVG event and they put up, no light event, if you don't search no light, you're never going to find it.
Hmm.
Now, the other side of things is usually when you're at the range and you're checking out what other people are shooting, and you notice that somebody has an IR laser illuminator on their gun. That goes down the rabbit hole. You say, "Hey, where do you shoot?" They say they know a spot. You two become friends, and next thing you know, you're on their land. So it's a little bit of mix of both. I will say for a lot of people, something that helped me when it came to actually finding a spot was actually going to these matches and becoming friends with the people there,
Mm-hmm.
because they're probably in the same boat wondering where they train. I know later on we're probably going to cover the topic of the best places to shoot, but for right now, at least in Florida, we're losing a lot of those places with the amount of development going on and the housing communities that are
Yeah.
getting put up around these ranges. A lot of these ranges are stopping night shoots. So if you're able to find that range that's away from all the city life and all the homes getting put up and stuff like that, you found yourself a gold mine.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have that problem. The three of us are members at our local club, and it's a fantastic club. But they're so scared about negligent discharges at night that they do not allow any night shooting past dusk. Like as soon as it's done, it's done. They don't run any matches on it. And like I know Kyle's even thought about potentially asking at some point to be able to run one. And they may or may not say yes, but my guess is because the insurance and everything, they'll probably say no. I mean, it's obviously worth asking. But I just found out recently that we have a couple buddies named Nathan. So one of the Nathans, they're actually members at a range that they stop shooting at 10 o'clock. Like that's it. At 10, it doesn't matter what the light is like at that time. So in Michigan, there is a lot of times during the year where like at 5:30, it's dark.
Mm-hmm.
So like there is a possibility to go out there, and I've already talked to him about this. Like, hey, can we go out sometime, do some white light shooting at after hours, and do some nods shooting as well too. But again, you're only go until 10 o'clock, and that's it. So it
Maybe
is
something
it is
else.
tough.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean
Go
to
ahead.
cut you off there.
No, you're good.
I was going to say maybe something else that will really help out is searching up those classes that are being taught by instructors online. I'm sorry, not online, but looking at online and finding the instructors that are shooting courses in your area at night and seeing if those ranges do regular nighttime shooting.
No, that's actually a great idea, and I like that you use the ideas again of like talking with somebody that has an IR on their gun, talking like looking at the matches online, finding out what ranges are holding it, and then again finding out training. Those are all like three ways that I don't necessarily would have even thought about using just to find those places to shoot. The matches one, I guess, online was probably going to be the first place I was going to go, and then try to find people that I know that have land that won't mind. Now, I know one of the things that people appreciate at night is like if you are going to shoot on your own land at night, like shooting suppressed. So like especially if you got a ton of acreage, it doesn't matter. But if you're like 40 acres or something like that, even just not having your neighbors call the cops on you while you're shooting at night, because that could get really awkward.
I'm gonna say in this day and age, you got to have a suppressor. I mean, it's it's such a
Yeah,
quick process. You got to have one. Now, the whole pistol side of things, I get that that's different, but come on, for a
Right.
rifle, you got to have one nowadays.
Yep.
yeah, totally. I agree.
So a question, I guess, like, kind of going down the route then.
I'm
Chris, I
working
know
on it.
that. What's that?
No, I was joking. I was commenting to Chris saying I'm working on it.
Oh, the suppressor side of things. Yeah, we won't go down that route either. But let's just say that a large TV network paid for mine. Anyway, so Chris, there's a lot like it's one thing to go out and like shoot in your own property and kind of dink around with night vision on, and kind of one of the focuses of this specific episode was on night vision competition shooting. I know you and I talked, and you've personally just started going down this route as well. And actually, I think you were going to even start trying to kick off a match too. What kind of is your experience shooting under nods? Have you done a lot of competitions shooting under nods?
Competitions, no. I shoot once a week right now at my local range, but they're going to plan on stopping it pretty soon here since the time change was so recent, and the
Wow.
sun's going to start going down around that 7:30, 8 o'clock mark. The package that I submitted to my range was really just to let me be the person that runs it and run a once a month 2-gun style match. Now, the
Nice.
matches that I was doing before was kind of in reference to what I was talking about earlier. It's been shut down, so it puts me back in the boat of having one less place to shoot.
That's wild. So did I hear that right? So you shoot at night once a week, or you just shoot once a week?
I shoot at night once a week. I actually mostly night vision. Actually, now that I think about it, but
That's
I'm really just
really
fortunate to have a
awesome.
range that offers that. If I
Dude.
was 2 hours north, I wouldn't,
Oh,
or
for
maybe I just
sure.
haven't discovered it yet.
Dude, that is really cool. So I guess with me being a guy who has never shot night vision before, knows practically nothing about it, what are some first steps you would recommend for someone like me to take to get into nighttime shooting?
Absolutely. First, I would say take these two things into consideration:
Mm-hmm.
application and use,
Yep.
and then cost.
Yep.
So if you're not using your night vision, it's really going to sit in the safe, and you might be looking at that night vision as a kitchen remodel or a down
Mm-hmm.
payment on a car or anything like that. And also, when it comes to night vision, you're not just buying night vision. You're buying the helmet that goes with it, the ear pro, the mount that goes with it, and it all starts to add up. Just so I don't go down the rabbit hole, you'd be
Mm-hmm.
surprised how many people find out for their $10,000 nods that there's a $500 mount that goes with it. There's a lot of sticker shock that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go down the rabbit hole of what ear pro is the best, what helmet is the best, directional hearing, non-directional hearing, things like that. So for you, really consider: am I going to use this?
That's
Is there
valid.
a place that offers this style of shooting? You know, am I actually going to not take out a loan, not go through a firm, and really go through my bank account and take out $5,000-$6,000 and buy this and never use it?
Mm-hmm.
I
So
know that's not the best answer for shooting, but it's the
no,
best answer
you're
for real
good.
life.
No, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate, of course, the transparency and upfrontness about that. So, of course, when it comes to firearms, you could the range of price can be anywhere. So, I guess let's say someone who kind of just wants to kind of dabble into it, kind of more budget minded. How much would that be in your perspective, in your opinion? Let's say someone who's like, I'm just kind of new, I kind of just want to play around with it, maybe kind of just shoot a couple times a year.
Absolutely. I think you can get away with something in the $3,500 mark. And I'm
Really?
going to put a few caveats with this.
Okay.
Prices are going to go up and down with
Of
the
course.
time of recording this video. It's April 12th. Tariffs are going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Things are going to go up and down. And that's just the market.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really wanted to do it, you could get something that you could use in daytime shooting as well. If you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get something as simple as a bump helmet, you could also use that for night shooting.
That's true.
If you already wanted to get something like Peltors or OpsCore, I forgot the name of those, amp arms. What are they called?
Yeah, the amps.
Yeah, amps. I'm sorry. You could use that for daytime daytime shooting, and use
Mm-hmm.
that for your helmet as well, and put that stuff to the side. But for night vision, I think you'd be great with just a standard PVS 14. I think everyone from the military kind of laughs and they think, oh, it's not the best. We've come a long way from there, but you're not in the military anymore and you're not using your night vision that much anymore. So if you just want something for the simplified route, a simple PVS 14 will really do you justice. And I see a lot of companies now offering package deals because a lot of people are in the same boat as you. They want to kind of just get an all in one package. So with that being said, sometimes they go on sale, whether it's a Black Friday deal, Easter coming up, an Easter sale, whatever it is, July 4th. Sometimes, that stuff really does meet the mark on your budget.
That's a good call out to like planning your purchases, right? Like if you are going to make a large purchase, because it is now, like when I ordered mine, I wanted a specific set of optics and they happen to be on sale from this vendor. So, but yeah, keeping an eye out, and it is such a large purchase, and you're not just like you're not buying night vision on a whim, right? Like you clearly have, maybe some people do if you got a lot of money, but for people that like are planning this, if you're going to wait a few more months to save, $500 on your purchase or something like that, because it is significant, right? And it's not necessarily something you need like right now, right? Unless the world is planning on ending like tomorrow, then maybe yes. But it's an investment, and I really like what you said too, Chris, where you're kind of like talking about the purchase. When you purchase stuff, realizing that night vision and buying PVS 14, which is a single tube or a set of dual tubes, is like the end goal, right? So starting with the items that you need to get in advance that you could actually use during daylight shooting, like a suppressor, right? And that's actually kind of the route that I went. So like I did the suppressor, I did SBR, so I did the whole process. And then I purchased the helmet, the mounts, and all that stuff that optic needed before I even thought about purchasing the night vision. Because you can use all of that stuff if you want in daytime shooting without necessarily having to make the massive purchase that is the final purchase. I would think of the actual night vision device itself.
Absolutely. A lot of that daytime stuff is stuff that you're already, that's in your possession or you're already thinking about purchasing. Night vision being the end goal is something great. And I also kind of want to hit on something that I didn't just mention. All the stuff that you had mentioned about saving up that extra $500,000, if you don't need night vision right away, there's no reason you shouldn't be doing it. And for a lot of people, too, the sun's going down at a certain time of the year. And you got to really think, are you going to be shooting at 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night? If you have family commitments, the chances are you're not. So for the people who are thinking, I'll get into night vision around daylight savings or when the sun's setting, like you said earlier, at 5:30 where you're at, maybe that's the best time to get the night vision. It's really just what works for you. So for Tyler earlier, when you asked, that's where the application and use comes in.
That makes sense. And then I guess when it comes to night vision, of course, when it comes to anything firearms related, there's always regulations or laws with it. Are there any laws or any like regulations when it comes to night vision? Like I think
The
of
only
like body armor, because I think there's like 2 states that ban it for some reason.
Body armor and suppressors, I think that's very state dependent. I'm not an expert on that stuff, but I will say this for night vision, ITAR does apply. So let's say you're Tyler, you buy a unit, you think, oh man, that guy was kind of right. I really don't use this. I'm going to use this for a motorhome. I'm going to take that money over there, right? And someone from Europe messages you and they say, hey, I'm interested and I'll pay right now, PayPal. You got to really check the legality on that because there's certain rules and regulations that come with that. For people who don't know, ITAR, I believe it stands for International Trades Arms Regulation. I could be stuttering that, but it's something that you want to consider when it comes to buy, selling, and trading night vision with people who are in foreign countries.
Basically, the rule of thumb is if they're not a citizen of the United States, don't even show them the night vision. It's the easiest way to keep yourself out of some serious $1 million fines.
Oh yeah. Something that you guys should know though, if you're planning on using your night vision or thermal for that matter for any style of hunting, you really got to check with your local regulations.
That's actually a great call.
Serious.
Yeah. So speaking of thermal, now you bring it up. What's the difference between night vision and thermal?
So night vision and thermal aren't the same. A lot of people get the two confused, but they don't really have the same capabilities. I'll give you an example. If I'm driving at night, I'd want to use night vision and I wouldn't want to use thermal because thermal's not something that can see through glass. But let's say I was doing something like spotting, scanning, and I was just looking for, let's say your dog ran away. You're looking for your dog, for example. You don't want to use night vision in that sense, because night vision doesn't give you the same benefits as thermal when it comes to actually picking stuff up like that. Now, there's a lot of differences when it comes to the specifics of the two, and I'm not going to go down that route because I'm not an expert in it. And thermal is one of those things that I'm actually just learning about now.
Gotcha.
I know there is some people that'll do both, which is wild to me. Like, you want to talk about the expense of like night vision or thermal both being extremely expensive, and then like merging the two together is even more like more costly. And
I'm not
I used to go ahead.
I'm not the biggest fan of that. I think you're referring to the bridge setup. I'm
Yeah.
not the biggest fan, and it's really just because how the refresh rate is on. I'll give you the example that I have an experience on, which is the FLIR, the FLIR breach, for example. The refresh rate that you get with that versus something on your PVS 14 where it's moving a little bit faster really messes with your eyes. I'm a big fan of having either duals or a mono, and when you need to use your thermal, you pop up your mono or duals, whatever you're using, and just getting on that thermal really quick.
No, that's interesting. I guess I didn't really think about that because like I personally would probably never do a thermal setup because my context and usage, I shouldn't say never because you never know. But like my context again is like from a competition perspective in wanting to shoot at night in a match with it. And obviously I know Moon's Out, which is the Forgotten Weapons thing, they have a thermal division, but I understand it's like that is the hardest by chance because again you lose a lot of that like ability to see. I'm gonna use bunny ears because you can't see it because we're on audio, but like you lose that ability to see normally at night, quote unquote, because you're using the thermal and you're only like looking for those heat signatures and scanning, like you were talking about.
Absolutely. It's a whole different world. So night vision and thermal, that's why I like to put it in a simple sense, they're really just not the same. There's so many differences between the two. And you said earlier that they called that the hardest division. I'd probably agree to that as well.
That's awesome. So you've got a lot of experience with equipment in like night vision and whatnot, and then you and I kind of talked about earlier connected, looking for some equipment recommendations. If you were somebody that was going to get into night vision, let's say for a competition usage specifically, like what are the things that somebody's looking at? Because I know there's like the four main, like I think there's four tube manufacturers at least that I'm aware of, right? There's like the Chinese NVT stuff. There's the Photonis stuff that's out of France, I believe. And then there's Elbit and L3 Harris, which are both the US companies. And there's a huge cost difference between like night vision is expensive as it is, but then when you start looking at the spectrum between like the Chinese stuff and like a high end L3, that's a lot. But there's also I feel like there's like a minimum for shooting competitions. It seems like I know again referencing Moons Out, they're like, hey, we recommend Generation 3 night vision. So I guess kind of getting into that question, what is somebody that does want to get into shooting night vision? What are they looking for?
Absolutely. You said, what was the name of the competition?
It's called it was Moons Out, Goons Out, and then they changed it to Moons Out this past year. But it's actually at Echo Valley, ironically, the same place where the Zombie Invitational is. That
Absolutely.
we all shoot.
I think they hit it on the head. I think a Gen 3 PVS 14 or duals, if you want, whatever your budget is, would work just fine. And I'm only going to speak on the type of tubes that I have experience on. And the last couple of months, I've been using these NNVT tubes to kind of get a feel for them. I really just don't recommend them. Now, last night I shot with them and they handled fine with shooting different rounds. I shot my short barrel 308, which was my SCAR. I shot 300 Blackout and I shot an AR9 under full auto and under a bigger caliber like 308. It holds up okay. I'm not going to say bad and I'm not going to say good. I'm going to just tell you where they start to fall off, and I don't want that person who wants to get into night vision be at wherever this competition is and say, oh man, I'm SOL. When you're using rounds that are just a little bit more flashier, or we talked about earlier, suppressors that cause a lot of flash, these tubes, the NNVT tubes on the new RNV31s, for example, they have something called the highlight self-protection mode. So what that is they essentially go into a mode where they go to protect themselves from any, highlights that are coming towards them. So if your suppressor that you already have from daytime shooting creates a lot of that spark, or you're shooting MagTech 115 grains, which was what I was shooting a lot recently, causing that tube to go into that mode, you don't want to get into competition using something like that. One of the PVS 14s that I own is a Gen 3 PVS 14, and that thing has held up fine for years. All the problems that I'm experiencing with a $7,000 setup, I have an experience with a $2,500 PVS 14.
Interesting. That's a lot to kind of think about for sure. And I think, is it because of just you said the way those specific tubes protect themselves? But then, like one of the reasons I was, and Kyle mentioned kind of earlier, was looking into photonists was because that they are supposedly known really well for auto gating, which is the ability to mitigate like light changes really well, and they're fast at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't think that like Elbit and L3 are a slouch at those either.
I don't have experience under those, so I can't talk to that.
Gotcha.
But I think that you bring up a good point for a lot of people out there who are in the rabbit hole to kind of research. I think auto gating 100% does matter. It's very, very important that you're not held back by your tubes. Hey, sorry, I can't shoot that round because my tubes can't handle it. Hey, sorry, I can't do that. My tubes can't handle it. If you're already in an expensive hobby, you want to do it the right way.
For sure. So is there any specific like tubes or brands or things that you just are like, you should probably just avoid that? Or they're just
Yeah.
depends? Well,
Yeah, and
I'd love to hear them.
it's actually not so
In
much
your
on
opinion.
tubes. In my honest opinion,
Mm-hmm.
if you're getting into night vision, please do not post on Facebook or Reddit, hey guys, what are your thoughts on Somo gear? I really don't think something that's rated for airsoft should be something that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
And the argument's going to be, well, it's 250, 300, 400 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Look, man, you want to do it the right way. And of course, there's the person out there that's going to say, mine's held up just fine. Well, you don't know how much that guy's shooting. You don't know what kind of setup it's on, what kind of recoil it's seeing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't even know if that guy's lying to you. He could be a Somo gear rep. I really don't recommend those types of
could
brands.
just be a Reddit bot.
You know what? I'll give you a great example. My laser is a $2,000 laser, and I have had significant problems with it.
Okay.
And I'm actually thinking about switching over to a PEC that I've been using on my SCAR. I have the Designate from 3EIR, and it's been shutting down after recoil. I know two people in real life that have been using them with absolutely no problem. So I sound like a crazy person to them, but that's just from my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question, sorry, I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole myself.
Go for it, man.
I really, really don't think folks should be getting into night vision using something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know. We kind of talked about before the episode all the stuff that's going on in the world. If you really have to use your night vision to save your life, you know, you don't want to kind of leave it to something like that. And you don't want to be the guy traveling around state to state for competitions wondering why your gear doesn't work when you spent more on gas to get there than the actual laser.
That's a good call out. And this is not the time to me that I should mention that I picked up 2 sets of SMS laser, their new model.
You know, I have no experience under them, but I kind of
Yeah.
do just because I've been seeing them go for very, very cheap. So instead of me talking all this BS, how about I experience it with that? I've used the Subo gear; it's interesting, but I think they're great for cloner setups. But I mean, if we're talking, you're asking me the style of competition, you're already spending the money, man. Do it the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's actually one of the reasons why, because I do have a Somo gear, and actually Kyle has used it and it's been fine, but I think it was on a 22. But I guess can't see it, but I did get one of these SMS laser units that everybody's like talking about, right? And it's a lot of like, again, people that are probably getting paid by them to talk about it. But there are other people that pop on and be like, hey, they're working great. So I do have a pair, so we're gonna kind of try and see how they hold up. They've made a bunch of changes on it. It's something that's coming out of China for sure. But and it's fairly new, and there's not necessarily a ton of like empirical data behind those yet, right? So we'll see. We'll give it a try, and then if it fails completely, then it's just gonna be the next item on my list is gonna be to save up for something like that.
Phil, I'm gonna say this because you bring up a great point, and I feel kind of strongly about it. And of course, I'm gonna be biased because I have a YouTube channel. If you're out there and you're trying to get into night vision and you're looking up, hey, I'm curious about so and so laser. How does it perform? And the guy tells you that it performs great, and then he tells you that you can get it from the link in his bio. Yeah. Did you really think he was going to say something bad about it? And there's so much on YouTube that's
so true.
That's centered around these long, extraneous videos that are showing all these different things that, if you use their code, of course, it's going to discount it. And I'm going to go against what I say here, but the R&Bs that I'm telling you about, the video that I'm going to release, I don't recommend them. But if you like them, you can use the code and get the discount. But I'm telling people not to buy them. I mean, that's $7,000. That's a lot of money, man.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
So with that being said, I know that YouTube appeals, at least to me, at least when I'm eating, of course I want to put on some YouTube, relax and watch some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're saying only good things and not the bad things, you know, you really got to think, am I going to spend this money just because this one guy said it? Just something to keep in mind.
Yep. No, that's really good advice. And it is, you know, it's like one of those things where everybody's trying to find a little bit of space to try to like find savings on it or whatever, right? And find out something that works and find that like magical being, you know, or find that magical thing in the spectrum of equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is like the good value versus like capabilities, right? And then longevity. Because obviously, anytime you put something on a rifle, I mean, you're getting the recoil off, or even a pistol. You're dealing with the recoil off of that, and it's sharp, especially when you're shooting like shorter barrels. I know scars are definitely not unforgiving. Like they're very rough on optics, from what I've heard.
Broken EOTech, yep, 100%.
Yeah. So again, like even the high end stuff's gonna break. But then I'm always like, man, like, and I actually, but probably what I'll end up saving up for is the Hollow Sun stuff. And I've had really good luck with that. And again, I know it's Chinese stuff, but like, I've got like 12,000 rounds on one of their like early Hollow Sun, like red dot tubes. And that thing has been beat up through matches. Like the housing is dinged and scratched, and that thing is held up. I have 0 issues with it. It still holds 0 to this day. So I'm like, and they pushed the boundaries of like what people thought was possible, right? And some people will be mad because I'm recommending a Chinese product versus an American product, right? But it just happens to work well. I don't have any issues with them. And
I don't
if
think
you have
you're.
somebody like, somebody like
I don't
myself
think
who's a
you're
bunch of
so much.
rifles, it's cheaper.
I don't think you're so much as recommending it. I think you're just experiencing or telling people that you had a good experience with
Exactly.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fair. If you had a good experience with it, then that's what works for you. Right behind me, we have one of the AR9s in the shop, and it has a Hollow Sun LE420 on it, and it works just fine. But let's take it a step further, right? You shot 12,000 rounds through it, and at 12,001, you have an issue. Does your laser offer good warranty capabilities?
Yeah.
Are you able to call them and say, hey, you know, I'm Philip, I bought this on this day and I'm having this issue? Now, I just talked bad about my Designate when I had the first issue with it, but I love the fact that I was able to just call them, speak to the owner on the phone, and get an RMA within the 5 minutes. It wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't anything where I was like, oh man, I'm out XYZ amount of dollars. It was as easy as going to UPS and sending it right back. So when it comes to buying a good laser, I think that's something people should keep in mind. You know, if you don't mind, I can kind of go through what I consider hits the wickets on for what I have for a laser test, if you don't mind.
Go for it, man.
So for the videos that I have coming up for laser stuff, especially for the Hollow Sun, the Iris is the new one I think they have coming out. I can't wait to get my hands on that. I want to talk about the overview. And when I talk about the overview, I'm not going to tell you how much it weighs or what it does. Anyone can read a spec sheet.
Why not, bro?
You know, I definitely just want to kind of get into what it actually looks like from distance, from the POV style with the Grec-X and stuff like that. So once we get into performance, I want to shoot it on various guns. And you mentioned short barrels earlier. That's definitely not a forgiving gun. So my plan is to do it from an 11.5, 13.9, and 16-inch just because I feel like those are the most common. After that, I feel like environmental considerations are really important, especially living in Florida. I can't really control when it's going to rain or humidity for that matter. So having something that withstands that's very, very important. After that, I want to see if it holds up to recoil on full auto, unsuppressed SCAR, suppressed SCAR, and after all of that, I'm going to see if it retains accuracy. And if it passes all that, has a good warranty, I'm definitely going to give it the right approval.
No, I can appreciate that, and I appreciate kind of like you talked about at the beginning of the podcast too. You're doing this to provide. And we actually, before we even got on and started recording, we both kind of talked about how acceptable accuracy from a podcast perspective has been a passion project for us, and we don't like Tyler and I don't make any money off of this. Kyle might, but
wait, what?
I'm just kidding. But it's something bit of money sink, and I know that's kind of how like with your YouTube channel, Blackout Ballistics, being a like passion project to kind of help people learn stuff, right? And and obviously, like you said, if it turns into something else, and you've got like a link for whatever, I understand. But no, I appreciate that, and that real world application to say, yes, I have X amount of rounds through this specific product, versus like somebody's like, yeah, when I shot it for 50 rounds, it was great, right? So, and that takes a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of your like where you could be doing something else instead of sitting and editing videos, you could be out shooting more. right?
Mhm.
But for you to actually sit down and take the time to provide that information.
Absolutely. It's I think the thing that takes up so much time too is writing out exactly what I want to see. When I think about a laser, I think about, well, how does it hold up to this or that or this? That's why I kind of thought about creating a baseline for all lasers, so I'm not biased or unbiased to one.
Right. A question that came up actually when we were talking about lasers a little bit, and it is, and kind of moving on a little bit too, within shooting with night vision, there we talked about earlier about passive and then like active aiming, right? So, and this kind of clarifying for people who are listening, like active aiming, I think would be the correct term, would be using a, like we talked about like a laser designation device that has a IR laser, and then typically along with it, there's also an IR illuminator as well. So it's basically like a flashlight and a laser, but in like IR capabilities or only night vision can see it, right?
Right.
And then you've got like again passive aiming where you're lining up your night vision tube through the tube, usually a red dot, on your rifle. So obviously, if you do like passive and you're going to shoot through the optic on your rifle, you're not really having to mess with zeroing stuff because their zero is 0, right?
Correct.
But how do you zero and set up a like laser and or a designator or whatever you want to call it, and a IR illuminator? How do you set those up so that they can be used effectively at night? Because I know there's a lot of argument between the way that you zero the laser on a firearm. Like what is kind of your take on that?
You just hit the nail on the head. There is a huge argument about it. And I don't think I'm the best to really talk to it. I know some people like converging or, doing the infinity method. I like the infinity method. It's worked well for me, and I don't have enough experience to say that one is better than the other.
Can you
The bad thing
clarify
about
what the infinity method is?
So for me, I go ahead and pop on my laser at night, and I pick in a safe manner, not at something crazy, at something, the farthest thing that I can see.
Okay.
On my LPVO, for example, and I line my laser up to that. So for me, I used a tree line that was maybe 300 yards away, and I lined my laser up to that. Now, instead of just doing what a lot of people do, which is kind of slave it to, a lot of people have like a 50-yard zero, for example. The bad part about that is knowing your holds past 50. So if you go to that competition and, their course of fire is 25, 50, 100, 150, then you got to start doing math, and I don't like doing math and shooting.
That's awesome.
But again, somebody out there is going to hear this, and they're going to know more than me. So again, I want to state that I'm really not an expert in it, and that's something that I need to know a little bit better. But I'm going to let you know what works for me.
So what is your preference? Is active aiming your preference, or is passive aiming your preference?
I like to mix it up, and here's why. Because I never know when stuff's going to go south, and I can't really use a laser because everybody listening to this went out and bought night vision, and they can see me. So if it's force on force, whatever's going on, it's good to use a mix of both. I don't think anyone is better, but I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes I just throw on the laser just to make it easier. And earlier we talked about this year being a competition year for me, and me running that LPVO now. I don't have the ability to do both. But on my Scar, I do have the Vortex Huey, and that thing's been working out pretty nice.
And what about you, Kyle? What do you prefer?
Yeah, I was just going to ask him the same thing.
Yeah. So, absolutely passive aiming is my preference.
Okay.
I have been on the receiving end of far too many UTM rounds because people are able to see your lasers, and somebody ND'd their IR floodlight off their end of their M4, and then the hail of stinging bees come through the trees at you. But I think passive aiming is the best. Like Chris said, is definitely the best for your force on force stuff. I know we try not to get too political on this, but the way the withdrawal of Afghanistan kind of even the playing field for ownership of the night. So if you crank out an IR laser into the tree line trying to get a reference point for your team, don't be surprised when 15 lasers start pointing right back at you.
And that's a scary thing to think about. I know we're just joking about it on podcast. That is a scary thing to think about, because if I don't know if you're friend or foe,
Yeah.
I am SOL.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that, honestly.
So my definitely my preference is passive aiming. It's you can really go, just like anything with night vision, you can go really deep into the weeds with this stuff. But
he brings up a good point. It's really good to mix up both, to try out both. If you're competing and no one's shooting back at you, why not?
And competing passive aiming is not always as good for competing. I prefer passive aiming for longer distance shots, to try to eliminate some of that visual noise that you experience looking through your tube, especially with a PVS 14. You've got a 40-degree field of view. It's the more you can eliminate what's going on in your vision, the better when you're trying to hit a silhouette target at 150 yards in the dark. But for the up close, just ripping and blasting a laser makes things a lot more easier and a lot more fun. When you're able to just rip it and go. Passive aiming, I would say you need to dry fire that. Getting reps in. Put a black sheet over your bedroom and turn the lights out and just do some ready up drills, or go into your garage and at midnight and tape some targets up on the back of your garage door and do some dry fire drills, stuff like that. Passive aiming's a lot more intuitive, but it comes with its own downsides. So you got increased costs, increased weight on your rifle, and of course, in the event of your range time becomes a two-way live fire, you are significantly compromising your position.
I think that's a great point. I'm sorry to butt in, but I got to say one more thing on that.
You're the guest. Please butt in anytime.
Yeah, exactly. We want to hear from you, bro.
Exactly.
Well, you're bringing up a great point that somebody out there, or maybe you guys might be getting into. You might take the advice that I said earlier about finding a course that's local, and that course might be a force on force CQB small unit tactics style training. You might be using UTMs or whatever you're doing, and sim rounds and all that, but you still have IR lasers. In this example that I'm giving, Philip and Tyler both have night vision. Philip and Tyler both have lasers. If you take that laser and you point it at somebody that's on night vision, you just burn through their tube. And then both of you are going to be sitting there playing the Cash App game like, dude, you owe me this much. It's something you guys need to think about. Also, if you're on the same team, I don't have any law enforcement experience, but this is just an example. If you're on a team and you're going into a building, you have an umbrella mount on your helmet mounted a light that's an IR. Let's say you have an M340V. You click it on, right? If it's not pointed up and it's pointed directly forward, and you turn around and you say, hey, Tyler, what did you just say? And you're staring directly at my light, you got to think, man, that guy's on night vision as well. So you talk about dry firing and negligent discharge. It can happen with lights and lasers too. That's a great point.
No, and I guess speaking in that vein, of course, when it comes to firearms with anything, it's all you hear is dry fire, dry fire, dry fire. What are other ways? What are, I guess, some dry fire drills or even live fire drills of just becoming a more effective night vision shooter or just night vision person?
Turn all the lights off in your house and walk around in night vision.
Say that again.
Yeah, turn all the lights out in your house and walk around at night with night vision on. I'm not, and I'm tongue in cheek with that, but you'd be surprised how much time early on just walking around, and Chris spoke to it earlier about learning depth perception. I can't tell you the number of times I jammed a finger or busted a knuckle reaching for something and just plowing my hand into it. An ammo can, a door hatch, something. Just thinking it was a lot further away than it was, and I just punched the crap out of it. Or stepping wrong. I have more than one teammate that ended up with a concussion because they went to step over a log or a rock or up a stair and caught the toe because they weren't quite there, or they couldn't see their feet. Taking for granted that almost 180 degree vertical and horizontal vision that humans have, and turning that down into looking through a toilet paper tube. It's very disorienting at first.
Especially with a single tube.
Yeah, and single tubes make it worse.
Well, and that's the thing that kind of I was always amazed about, because obviously the most time you're seeing people probably using night vision, they're going to be shooting with it, right? But maybe not. I don't know. But there's like a whole like subgroup of individuals who go hiking at night with night vision on.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you not die?
Yeah.
Watching
Yeah,
a route. Like I've been hiking the
Why?
other day and like tripped up. It's like,
Yeah, I wouldn't go hike, in Glacier National Park with it on, but going and hiking, doing hiking around a bike trail on your local park, something like that. If you do it at 3:00 in the morning, the only people that are going to be out there are the people talking to trees anyway. So
you may want to take a firearm with you anyway.
yeah, you probably want a firearm with you anyway for that. So there's nothing to worry about. You can see and they can't.
That's
if you're already doing outdoor things like camping and stuff like that, bring your night vision. Why not? If you're going to an area, you mentioned a part of Virginia earlier. If you're going to that area where there's absolutely no lights, use your night vision. Bring it with you. A lot of people don't know you could fly with it. Take your night vision with you and experience different terrains.
That's
really
your
carry-on.
Now, don't fly to the Appalachian mountains and do that because I said so. No, like obviously, because he is right. The people who are up at that time aren't using night vision. They're doing other weird stuff. But all the fun stuff happens at night.
That's true.
That's awesome.
But I also wanted to hit something as well. You mentioned earlier, what can I do to get better at shooting under night vision? And I think getting used to your gear is the point that everyone's going to make, and I'm kind of stealing that point from him as well. So getting used to this, is my helmet comfortable? Is my helmet set up, right? Is anything snagging? If I need a hot swap of battery, am I really going to reach into my battery pack, take out the battery, have to put my light on, show everybody where I'm at, find that battery, put it back instead of putting it in the right spot? Does everything work for being right-handed? Is this stuff useful? I want to take it a step further and take it to the IR laser side of things. Unless you're running something like an OTAL, which is only IR laser, or you're running something that doesn't offer you the daytime laser, I think this is something that you can train. When it's starting to get dark and you're able to clearly see your green laser, go out and do some drills with just that green laser. Because the other side of that obviously is the IR laser. But if you're able to use the green laser and know your holds and know your drills and do things like that, do drills with that style of shooting, I think it'll help out a lot. And at least it helped me, because actually pressing the button and getting on that laser and running to that next target was very, very interesting. A step further than that is when people get into the IR lasers, they say this button is the worst. I hate the PEC button. That's just a personal thing. I love my designate button. They're in two different spots. So for the PEC, if I wanted to set up a pressure switch, I could. Then you get down to pressure switch, mounting options. They're saying, is this the best? Is this the worst? Am I going to ND this when I C clamp it? Just things like that. So, I hope that helps you. At least it helped me.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the correlation to using a laser in daylight, because it is weird when you're so used to looking down like a red dot, iron sights, with a pistol and a rifle. That's one thing. But then when you're shooting a rifle and you're trying to aim a laser at the target that you're shooting at, that you're not necessarily looking down the sights, it's weird. And sometimes like you don't realize how like intuitive, how much practice you have bringing and shouldering a weapon, where like with night vision, I've seen people like shoot it like almost off the hip sometimes, or they may bring it up just to help.
Yeah.
But like trying to find the laser and pointing in the direction is not, I personally feel, not nearly as intuitive as trying to look down like an actual optic of either a rifle or a pistol.
Yeah,
you ever
get
seen
to
the
feel
guys
like an
with
80
the
action movie hero.
Yeah.
You ever seen the guys with the Hydra mount?
There was a USPSA stage that I was on where it was shooting PCC, and you were supposed to start off the hip. There's no rules that say you can't shoot off the hip.
I remember this.
Nothing says that. So like there were targets like literally right in front of us. So I had the thing on my hip, which was the starting position, and then I had a laser that just happened to have on the device. So I pointed at the start. I pointed at the targets, and I ripped off I think it was like 2 shots on one target and 2 on another or something like that before I shouldered it. That was probably one of the most enjoyable days in competition shooting ever, just because it was something you don't get to do that often.
And wasn't that your SBR score? Your SBR as well?
I think so.
That's amazing.
That's like my home defense gun too. So it's like it's got a light laser on it.
What were you saying, Chris, earlier?
I wanted to say, well, actually 2 more things. I kind of wanted to make a joke about everyone has an opinion, and the GBRS guys have the Hydra mount, which
Yes.
I think I don't have any experience with it. It's
Yeah.
funky, man. It's something that you got to get used to. And the second thing that I wanted to say was when it comes to dry firing and learning your gear, I'm going to take learning your gear one step further too. When you're using whatever IR laser illuminator, I think Philip, you have the SMS in front of you. You're going to notice that there's like 5-6 different settings, and you don't want to be at the competitions, Googling your brochure. You got to know what each and every one does. Yep.
Yeah, for those who can't see, there's like IR setting, illuminator setting, and then IR illuminator setting.
Yep. So when they say shooter ready, you don't want to say, hold on, I need to check my entire laser setup and then pull the brochure out. And a second thing is like if you ever look up like a D-Ball A3 is a laser that I owned when I first started shooting, there's like 10 different settings. Do you really know which one's going to, do what you need to do? So if it helps, take a little, white Sharpie and mark that setting as the high setting that you like or what works for you. So when you're under night vision, you look down, you see it off the glow of your night vision, that's what you need to turn to.
That's interesting, and that's actually extremely smart. I like that because I like these little tips that like you don't necessarily think of until you've actually done it for a while. Because I was looking at this thing earlier in preparation of this episode, and I was like, okay, so obviously I'm looking at this unit with my own two eyes, and I'm looking at it under like fantastic lighting conditions in my house, right? These letters are already small as it is. Now, having to look at those, and it's a practice thing, right? It's just like the same thing when you're practicing for competition. Make sure your finger's not in the trigger guard, right? So it's a practice thing, like, and then you can feel like this has a pretty good raised like indicator on it, and you can feel it. But still, if you don't have a ton of time messing with that and figuring out where it should be set, not trying to ND again, which a lot of matches, if you ND like your light, it's just like considered an ND of your like rifle itself, and you're done. So you have to be really careful with those things, making sure that you've got it set where you want it to set. If you do turn it off, how do you get it back to turn on? Like Chris was saying, marking it, which is a fantastic idea. And I'm actually going to do that once I get this thing set up. I'm going to get it set up to the IR and laser setting at some point, and just so I know to spin it to that point if I do forget for whatever reason.
Absolutely. I'm glad I can help out. Absolutely, man. I'm going to give credit where credit's due. My best friend who got me really into night vision, or at least put the first set of night vision on me outside of the military, that was one of his philosophies. You got to know your gear. He's not always going to be there. The internet's not always going to be there. I'm not going to have the brochure. I've got to know my gear.
The other thing I heard that too that was interesting was, and Kyle, maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but what's it like doing other administrative tasks under nods? So I guess like Kyle, like if you're reloading a firearm or you're like fixing equipment, like obviously that's not something that you're just like, hang on, let me turn the light on and fix this.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of stuff is be able to do it with your eyes closed. We used to drill, in the platoons and squads and stuff like that. You used to drill field stripping and reassembling your M4 with blindfolded. That's the old like Rambo thing. It's like, oh, I hang upside down and disassemble my pistol, before my eyes start to bleed or something like that. But what it was a time killer, and it was used to esprit de corps and whatever. But it was also like, hey, if you have a malfunction under nods, are you going to be able to take the time to readjust the focus on your tube to be able to see what's 4 inches in front of your face to clear a malfunction, and then refocus your tube for the target that you're being engaged by, and then start to put rounds back on target? No, you're not. Like Chris said earlier, being able to replace the battery on your tubes. I mean, the tubes in the Army would eat batteries. We'd be ripping through AA lithium batteries, 6 hours, I think, was kind of the average runtime you'd really get. And when your guard shift is 12 hours, you at some point are going to have to replace your battery. And do you want to take that off your helmet, turn a light on, try to do that? No, you just either unhook it and do it by feel, or just do it while it's still attached and do the whole thing by feel. Things that are just not as serious either, just moving around, feeling with your feet versus looking down at your feet while you're walking. It kind of defeats the purpose of you wearing night vision. is if you're going to be looking straight at the ground every place you step, do you really need to, have a $3,000 piece of equipment attached to your head? Because you're not looking around anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of, we touched on it earlier. Chris, Chris touched on it beautifully earlier. There's so much things that you do at night that, the reason why we EDC flashlights and why there's street lights everywhere and why businesses have lights all over the exterior is because you need to see at night to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Just take all the light away and you still have to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
So taking the trash cans out at night and doing that with nods, can you do that by feel, by muscle memory? Or do you
Totally.
or do you need to turn your house lights on to be able to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Just little things like that you can do, every few times a week or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That'll make you more comfortable with running your device.
That makes sense. What I really got out of that is, hey Phil, you know what we're gonna do later, right?
Like later tonight?
No, not well. You can do whatever you want tonight. But I was just saying, I guess we're gonna go blindfold and we're gonna be field stripping our ARs and pistols, Phil.
There you go. Or at least unloading and reloading it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point too, Kyle. I think, Chris was talking about this earlier, and I know he brings it up on, I think, some of the videos that he had as well too, is that if you're going to go in a night vision competition and you're not already comfortable with all of the gear that you have that you're planning on shooting in that match,
Mm-hmm.
like, you should probably shoot a daylight match first. Like, don't just dive right into it.
Can you reload your gun from your chest rig with your eyes closed?
Mm-hmm.
The only people that I would maybe even recommend as their first match are people that literally do for a job, spend their time under nods, right? And even then, you still need to learn the rules of shooting a match in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to learn those during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are there any? So speaking of that, so in preparation for someone's first night vision match, of course, what I'm hearing is know your gear, be able to do it with your eyes closed. Are there anything else someone should be prepared for in prep for their first night vision shoot competition?
Yep. Prepare to be blown away, man. There's some good shooters out there. There are some.
I can see. Yeah, that makes sense.
There are some guys where, I'm like, all right, well, this doesn't seem too bad. And I'm in the middle of, the shooting pack. So I can at least watch other people run the course. And I'm just like, oh my God, I am definitely not as good. But honestly, man, just have fun. Honestly, like night vision shooters, yeah, they're weird people, but they're cool guys. And they're a lot of people too. If you're like, hey, I've been curious about that laser or that, that optic that you have, you mind if I look through it? They're never going to say no. I've never met an unfriendly night vision shooter. In fact, when I meet them, we're kind of friends already. Like, you like night vision, I like night vision. Where do you shoot at? And we go from there. It's
we just become best friends.
I ended up on this. Yeah, that's kind of how I ended up on this podcast, man. You guys like night vision, I like night vision. Maybe at the end I can be part of the friend group. That's just how it goes.
Absolutely.
I hope so.
Hey, there we go.
But I wanted to mention something earlier too. You Kyle hit it greatly. I do want to talk about admin tasks. Guys, when you're under night vision, you're not always going to be shooting. And there's so many things that you can do to learn it. If you want to learn walking and you got a dog, walk your dog under night vision. That's not frowned upon. I mean, if your neighbors already think you're weird, this is just part of it. And if you want to learn the importance of turning on a light, play hide and seek with somebody where you both have night vision. And once you see that guy light a cigarette, wear an Apple Watch, or do anything that emits light, you know where he is, right? And it's something as simple. We bring up the battery swap. Something as simple as a battery swap can take so much time, unless, of course, you have the housings nowadays that show you battery percentage, which I think is great. That's going to take time. And if you can't do that, and if I hear you struggling, taking your helmet off, trying to find your battery pack, it's going to take time. Also, Kyle mentioned something really, really important. This is the year that I'm trying to do as many competitions as I can. And I've never seen so many guns malfunction. Now I'm learning that people run like these serious competition style rifles and pistols where it's like super light springs or, super specific loads. And with that, I see a lot of malfunctions. That's going to happen at night. You don't want to be the guy that has to turn around and tell everybody, hey, I'm going on white light. Everybody flip your nods up. I really recommend to everybody with a helmet. I think Streamlight is mine. I can't remember off the top of my head. you guys can get a little admin light. I think Princeton Tac is the other one.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
have the
Yep.
you have the ability to create a small little red light. And I use it quite often. When I'm looking for something, I have a Grec-X, which is a night vision recorder, and the little spring on there is horrible. It always falls on the ground. I'm not the guy pulling out white light. Having a little red light comes in handy. But back to what I was just saying, those malfunctions happen. And when you have to, show clear or, look for something or, speak with the RO and tell them what's going on with the gun, you're not going to put on your white light. You don't want to be that guy. I'm speaking from experience on that one.
So I guess what happens if someone shines a white light and you're under night vision? What happens?
Oh, it's nothing like the movies. You don't scream, it's nothing like
For
that.
sure,
It's just really
Depends on how
annoying.
bright that light is.
Exactly. Earlier he mentioned like bad PVS-14s. If you got a bad tube and someone puts a bright light on, let's talk about the R&B 31s. If you put a bright light on, they go into that protection mode. That's kind of annoying to me, man. I mean, yeah, it's a mistake and I can get over it in a second, but it's just, I'm trying to think about the other shooters because you never know which one of those shooters has 90 acres that they haven't told you about yet.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But it's like I said, it's nothing crazy. It's just something that it's good practice because you never know who's showing up to those competitions being the new guy and they're going to be asking you for advice.
That's a good call too, is being respectful of other people while you are shooting in these matches, so you have the opportunity to find the 90 acres with somebody else. Because if you think of like firearms and firearms competition as a hobby that we all do on this call, right? There's not a lot of people that do that. Like, because we live in this world, we think that everybody does it. And there are a lot of people that do it, but we've made friend groups as a result of it. But then if you think of night vision shooting, that subset is even smaller than like your regular shooters, like really small compared to like your just general shooting, people that want to go out and shoot like a USPSA or IDPA match, right? So
there's a difference
again,
between
not
people
thinking
who
of
own
people
it
that
and
you
use
have
it.
an opportunity to become friends with and shoot with later.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's a difference between people who own night vision and use night vision. So it's just such a small click.
Yeah. So I guess kind of going back on night vision competitions, how much experience do you have with night vision competitions, Chris? Like how many ballpark area competitions have you been a part of or competed in?
Right. On practice score, I have 3, but again, we shoot weekly, and that ends up being a little competition within itself.
Nice.
Whether the course of fire is something simple, we're always going to compare times. But as far as the competition side, I really haven't gotten to that so much this year. I've been trying out a lot of different daytime matches, like precision gas gun. I did my first action steel last week. I'm signing up for USPSA pretty soon here, and prior to that, I did a 2-gun. But night vision matches aren't as common as people think they are. So when it comes to actually going out to a night shoot, it ends up being a competition when you're comparing times.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of your like footage that you had on your Instagram channel, especially, was like people using barricades and targets and stuff. So it's like my guess is that's what you're doing. You're setting up when you guys go out to shoot it. So you are almost shooting like a small competition within that time.
Pretty much. But if somebody were to fact check me and they say, well, I don't see that on practice score, I'd say you're 100% right because it's not an official match.
Yeah, again, because there's so few of them out there, it's like getting out in the first place and shooting with barricades and targets and stuff. Like you might as well like count that as such, or at least practice for the match, right?
Right. I really recommend a lot of people reach out to their local range and see if they're even open to it. Because if you got 5-6 guys that are ready to go and ready to pay, and all you need is the range, why not? You can do that during the day. They just got to shut the lights off. What's the difference between doing that and just renting out a bay during the day?
Yeah, that's a good point. So with a night vision match, like what do stages even look like? Is it like something that'll be more like a USPSA where you're kind of like just running and gunning, going fast, or would it be like IDPA where you're kind of like slicing the pie? Like what is it? What does like a typical stage even looks like? Are you shooting close, far? I have no idea. So
it really depends on that match director's feeling that way. I've seen some funny style setups where there's only 3 targets, but the barricades that I have to run to are in the worst spots. Okay. And something I've learned competing this year is when you make that stage plan, you've got to stick to it. Because as soon as that beeper goes off, I swear my brain just erases what I was thinking about. Yep. I start thinking all the things that I was preaching to you guys earlier, like, where is my laser? Where's the button? But No, it's no different from anything really in the day, especially with what I've seen with USPSA trying to get into that recently. I think the way
Mhm.
that they set up their targets, minus the pneumatics that they have with the swinging targets and stuff like that, it's
Mhm.
pretty similar to that. And as far as how far the targets go, it's nothing crazy, just due to the limited factor of night vision not being magnified.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It
lots of
brings up a
13.
good
It's like,
point. Oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
You're the guest. You get to interrupt me.
Okay, sorry. I got bad connection. I'm sorry. I was going to say using things that at least that I've struggled with, which is going around barriers with that, laser, or using the what do you call that? The VTAC barricade. That's
Mhm.
something I've had
Mhm.
to get used to, because that's not something that worked well with me when I had a side mounted laser. I was like, wow, maybe I can't really use my rifle in this setup. So it's just something that you guys might want to think about. If you get there
Mhm.
and you're like, oh, there's the barricade he was talking about. The SCAR's a pretty big gun. So
Yeah. When are we
That's
gonna
interesting.
pull out the VTEC barricade, Phil?
I know. We haven't shot it in a while.
Yeah,
We
it's
should probably
probably been like 2 years.
well, to be fair, I've shot it without you. Sorry.
I'm not surprised.
Um, yeah, we made a foldable. There's plans online you can find a foldable VTAC barricade, because we were running into VTAC barricades in
Mhm.
competition so often. We're like, well, we might as well make one.
It,
But
it
Chris, you
was
made a really good
yeah.
point about the side mounting of the laser, because currently, right now, I have my laser set up as an infinity, like parallel to it's parallel to the barrel, right?
yep,
It's
like
on the
yep.
side because it was like the most comfortable way of setting it up. But now I'm thinking, like, if I'm issuing competition to a VTAC, that laser is going to be like right into the plywood, so I'm not going to see anything. I
Passive
guess like
aiming.
yeah, exactly. Unless you want to pass the game, I was just going to say that. So you're almost like forced to do that, and I'm thinking about all like the splashback from, like, if you have it on. I guess if you're not pressing the button, you're fine. But like, that's a potential problem too. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to turn my laser on and go shoot now, or my illuminator on, and boom, tons of splashback in your face.
Yep.
That's
And
interesting.
Kyle brings a good point up. That's why I say earlier, you really got to switch it up, because you never know where you're going to be. And secondly, you can't prepare for every competition. So
Yeah, that's
if side mount's the only thing that works for you, and that one competition, the one day out of the year, you're in a bad spot. You might just have to take the loss on that stage. Keep it moving.
yeah.
But
Mhm.
Okay. That's
I personally I moved back to the top of my firearm. I just like it a lot better.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the whole real estate thing with the 11 and a half and how to get it on there without being like annoyingly in the way.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep. Trial by error.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right. I guess kind of wrapping stuff up too. Is there anything like specifically that we haven't touched on, Chris or Kyle, that you would like people to know in regards to like shooting at night in general, or shooting in competition?
Kyle, I've been yapping. You go first.
I, I mean, I would say that we kind of harped on it earlier, but just it's so much easier to get over your head and out of control with nods on than it is in the daytime.
Mhm.
So really, just being able to have muscle memory on all of your, systems, which is an overused word, but uh, your chest rig, your belt, your holster, your sling, reloads, malfunction clearances, running, stopping, leaning, kneeling, prone, all those things, just you need to have a really good grasp of those and be able to do them subconsciously, where you're not really having to think about it, because when you put that helmet on, or that headgear on, and go dark, you are going to have to think about those tasks at that point. And if you're not comfortable to do it in the daytime, you're going to be very easily out of control at night,
Mhm.
and that's how you get accidents happening. So at the very best, you're going to embarrass yourself. At the very worst, you're sending somebody home in an ambulance.
Mhm.
So it's something that morbid to talk about, but having that really good grasp of just the simple mechanics of everything that you do with a gun before you add the night vision to it, and then go out and compete. Now, if you want to get night vision and then dry fire, shoot on the flat range, walk around, walk your dog, hike, you know, read a magazine, whatever, you know, do it. You know, those are ways that you get more comfortable with things. But you're seeing a trend with all my guest appearances here is you got to train. You got to get trained. You got to train, and you got to do your, your due diligence on being comfortable with your equipment.
No, I really appreciate that, Kyle. And I think that's one thing we've talked a lot about on this podcast in general is because it's kind of been the mission and the goal of this podcast is to be realistic to people because everyone's going to tell you and give you their opinion, like we talked about on like, oh yeah, no problem. Just buy some knots and go out and shoot. Right. Like maybe nobody's going to actually tell you. But again, there's a scale to get to like night vision shooting again with being understanding all those things that you were just talking about a second ago and realizing that it's a journey and you're not necessarily just going to go there immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess, Chris, any other closing thoughts on shooting under nods or shooting competition under nods or just shooting in general?
Absolutely. I'll just say a few things. I know sometimes people skip through the episode, and if you're at the end of the episode, you want a good summary about getting into night vision. I'm going to tell you about the things that you should think about even before you buy the night vision. Number one, do you have a place to shoot? There really is a difference between people who own night vision and use night vision, and that thousands of dollars sitting in the safe could go to a lot of other things in your life. So really think, are you going to use your night vision? Again, I'm really fortunate. My range allows it once a week. So, if I was in a situation where my range only allowed it once a year, that's something I'd want to think about. The other thing is just the cost. I'm going to give myself a shameless plug here. I only have 2 videos out and they cover both of the things that I just said. But cost is really, really expensive and it only gets more and more expensive. I gave you guys the baseline number of 3,500. It goes up from there. It goes up from there. Then you get a wife and, she wants to hang out with you and you say, I gotta go look at the stars. And then she likes it. Now you got to get her a pair. You have a kid, your daughter wants to get to it. Your son wants to get to it. It adds up. It really does. So definitely think about the cost. And when I say cost, think about the total cost. Now, another point I want to make is application and use. Really, really think about what you're using your night vision for. If you're listening to this and you're in Michigan and you only hunt, maybe think that night vision isn't the best for you. Maybe think about thermal. And the last point that I'm going to make is what Kyle just said. It's really your daytime proficiency. Look, if you can't shoot during the day, you can't shoot at night. Everyone's seen those videos on Instagram and YouTube where it's, cool music playing and guys in tactical gear and all that stuff. Look, man, that's a photo shoot. We got to be realistic when it comes to competition shooting. If you can't shoot during the day, you're not doing the best. Don't think getting night vision is going to make you a better shooter. $10,000 nods doesn't make a $10,000 shooter. It's just doesn't work like that. And I'll just say a few more things as well. He just mentioned train. Look, with night vision, you really don't even have to shoot to even use your gear. You could just wear them. I'll tell you about the coolest time that I've actually worn my night vision is when I watch turtles lay eggs on the beach. They come up at night and wow. I'm literally the only guy on the beach with night vision on. No one can see me, but I can see them and I'm watching it. It's one of the coolest things. And also know something else. I'm a non-monetized channel, right? I'm just trying to do this because I really just like night vision. A lot of people on YouTube are trying to sell you something. So if you have the opportunity, like if you live in Florida, I'm not endorsed by the company I'm about to name, but check out like a company like Steel Industries, for example, where you can go in and actually use the product. Sending $7,000 to some guy you met on TaxSwap or Facebook's kind of sketchy. So going to the company and getting that face-to-face connection is really important. And the last thing is please know your laser. We talked about it earlier, but there's like 20 different settings on there, and I'm speaking from experience. Know your laser.
That's a good call out about like everything that you covered, and I especially appreciate the comment about making sure that where you're sending your dollars off to, because there's like countless stories online of people getting ripped off, right? And Steel Industries is a good call out. Everybody seems to like them, like no matter where you're at. And again, maybe they're all paid by Steel Industries. I doubt it, but they seem to have a really good reputation in the industry.
Cooper from Steel Industries answers my questions, and he doesn't try to sell me something. Very nice guy in person. I really enjoyed working with him. I bought my night vision personally from a guy named Theodore Parsons from Parsons Precisions, and I asked the dumbest questions. I'm surprised he didn't hang up on me. And I mean, at the end, he obviously got the sale, and a lot of stuff that I'm telling you guys about today are things that I'm glad that he led me in the right direction on. There's great companies on there. Guys, if you're listening, please hear me out on this. When it comes to buying your night vision unit, please buy it from a reputable dealer that was built in a clean room. The garage units are best because they're cheap. That doesn't mean that they perform the best. So what you put in is what you get out.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I see those like posts online where somebody's like, "Hey, I built this Nod for $1,500." I'm like, and that's cool that they did it because they built one. I don't know how to do that. But again, if you're looking for competition where you have to have super clear optics, you don't want to have like something that's gonna like maybe if you do run into a barricade that's gonna shatter because you like literally printed the housing on your 3D printer instead of buying like an actual like, and because some of the manufacturers do 3D print some of their stuff, but they use like really high end materials to do that, right? Versus like, stuff that you get off of standard 3D printer.
Yeah, the tensile strength on the newer stuff is actually really cool. I think Tanto is the newer housing, and I'd love to get my hands on that. I think that's pretty cool. But then you bring in the argument of weight versus durability. And, if you're doing night vision, if you're using night vision for 10 hours, take weight into example. You talked about standing guard, Kyle. Would you really want that much weight on your head?
Oh, yeah. You get a strong neck real quick.
Yeah. I see a photo of that one guy, and I don't know where the photo came from, but his neck is literally like thicker than his head is. Like,
long neck,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, man. So that's really just like that's just my 2 cents. And remember, guys, I'm just a guy like you. I just like night vision. I'm not an instructor. I'm not paid by a company. I just like night vision like you guys do.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, I think that was awesome closing statements. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section, or I guess the final section of the podcast, which is our life advice. So, Phil, what is your dad advice?
I also like how you did you said you weren't a teacher earlier, but like it's very much now we're moving on to this part of the class or the speech or whatever.
I mean, I never said I'm not a teacher. I say I'm not a professional teacher, but I definitely have teaching tendencies.
Yeah. So for life advice, and kind of as we were joking at the beginning of the podcast, I am legitimately carnivore. I'm like 12 days in, which is like nothing, right? But I will be honest, like the changes in my diet, because I never ate really great. Like Tyler attests to, he knows how much I love Taco Bell. So
apparently there's an agreement where once he's done with this, we're getting Taco Bell every other week together. I'm like,
heck yeah, dude.
I'm like, where was I in? I'm like, okay, I guess.
Because we were probably anyway, I'm just gonna get a cut out of you and take it with me. Anyway, that all being said is that like I made these changes like 12 days ago per an agreement with my wife. She's like, hey, I really want you to do this and see what I do. And I honestly, like in just 12 stinking days, like I've noticed a massive difference in just like the way that I feel, my mental acuity and that kind of stuff. And it's something that I was not great about. I signed up for a run and gun match because I knew I needed to make some changes, right? And I knew it's like with Wolverine in the past for us. It was what drove me to get out and like rock with a whole bunch of weight on, right? So like every pound I lose, the better I feel, the more mental acuity I have. I started running, that kind of stuff. All of those things are hard and they suck. But for me, and we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, having a goal in an area to get to, in the same way with night vision, right? Having a goal to land on, like, is what drives me. And realizing that we have like one body that we're going to be in, and knowing that I didn't necessarily do a good job of taking care of mine and trying to make changes. It's never too late to make those changes. I seriously feel like I'm in my 30s again as a result, like early 30s as a result of this change. And that's only 12 days in. Now, that being said, after it's all done, I had another conversation with a lady earlier today who did something similar, and then she went to like an 80-20. She said 80% of the time, you're like, put in the work to, eat super well. And then like, if you want that 20% to go get ice cream, go for it. And Tyler, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's the person that owns the camper.
Oh, gotcha. I'm like, I do.
Yeah. She's like super, like she dropped.
I do now.
Yes. She dropped 40 pounds, kept it off, and she's a little bit older and just has really kept in really good shape as a result too. So all that to say is never too late to start and really putting time and focus in it. And then again, having like a goal to go with, and then also giving yourself some grace in that as well too, to say that, yes, we're all human. and we're going to cheat, but I try to have set rules around that cheating.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. When I say cheating, I mean, like, for me, it's eating food. That's not great.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Tyler? What do you got?
So, for those who know me, they know that I, for some reason, there are a lot of Johns that I allow kind of just that I like to listen to online, whether it's like John Lovell, John Eldridge, and right now I'm about to quote John Deloney. And he's he's a previous trauma crisis counselor. And it was a quote that I've heard him say before, but I heard him say recently again. It just really hit me. And he likes to say, grief demands a witness. When we choose to grieve alone, our bodies absorb the full weight of it. When we grieve with others, the weight gets distributed. Dr. Henry Cloud also likes to talk about the importance of bonding and connecting with others and how of course there are times we need to have solitude, but loneliness is really what just destroys us and destroys our souls. And that's where it's just making sure that you surround yourself, whether you're hurting or whatever aspect of whatever phase of life you're in, is just make sure you surround yourself with the people that you know have your back, who are your ride or die. So that's my dad advice for today. Surround yourself with good people.
I like that. And
Excellent.
as dudes, it can be really, really hard to like
100%.
grieve in front of another guy. Now, like I am married, so I choose to do most any grieving that I do have, which is fortunately not a ton. I've been very blessed in my life. I do it with my wife because women are definitely set up to be able to handle that. I think better than guys are. I'm not saying that guys can't, especially those who like as a living, like especially pastors and counselors and such, right? But even then, there's sometimes like you need to grieve about something. Like let's say there's something wrong with your spouse and you need another guy to grieve on. Have somebody that you can grieve with and be okay with it.
Exactly.
So I like that. That's good.
Cool. So, Kyle, what about you, man? What is your life advice for today?
I'll say we're getting pretty deep in here because I wrote one down earlier. Be brave, even if you're not. Fake it, because nobody can tell the difference.
My man.
I like that.
I like that too. I love that.
Yeah. If you do it enough too, like I feel like you'll eventually get to that point where you're like, okay.
Well, we had a tongue-in-cheek joke in the army that false motivation is still motivation.
Yeah.
So when you're really like sucking on like mile 11 of that 12-mile ruck in a blizzard, you know, you're you just start yelling to yourself and getting all moto. You can that last mile doesn't break you off quite as bad, even though you want to quit and you want to go home.
Yeah.
That last little bit of just charging the hill can, even if you're faking, yet you're motivated. It's still motivation. So fake bravery is still bravery.
Well, thank you for sharing that for sure. Now it's your turn. You get to pick somebody, Kyle.
Oh yeah.
Phil, you're up.
Phil, hit us again. Chris, what do you got for us, man?
For life advice, do I just,
yeah,
from the heart say anything?
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever, something your dad told you, coach, whatever.
Well, buddy, I wish I had a dad, but I'll say this.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm young.
that.
I'm 27 years old, so I haven't been around the earth that many times. But I mean, I will say the things that at least I've seen so far in life. When it comes to dealing with all the things that you talked about earlier, like grieving and all that, you guys got to have a strong support system. Yeah, it's cool to have like shooting buddies, but I mean, if you guys don't talk outside of the range or you're really not friends, look, man, where do you think you're going to experience all your problems? Shooting is just one part of your, day. There's so much that people deal with when it comes to like friends, family, work. I mean, even the road rage on the way to the range, that. Ooh,
it's so true, man.
Tongue twister there. Road rage on the way to the range.
My man, yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, look, man, if you can't call, your friends, and when I say call, I mean not what my generation does, text all the time. You got to call your friends. I call my best friend all the time, even if it's just I don't know, scream something at him. Even if it's a voicemail, it makes me laugh. It makes me feel better. He'll call me back. We'll laugh at it. I'll say another thing too is you got to get better every day, even if it's 1%.
Yep.
Whatever it is that you're doing. If your day job requires you to, you're in religious studies, for example, you're going to read one extra page of whatever book that you're reading that day to help you out with your day job. Do that, and when it comes to getting better every day, you really can't compare yourself to others. I think we've all heard the quote, comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh yeah.
If you're jealous of the guy that has $10,000 nods because you have $5,000 nods, just know there's 100 guys out there who wish they had money for nods. So that's that's something you got to think about, man. And honestly, you got to work out every day. I know it sucks, I know it's it's for some psychopaths, it's fun running that 12 miles, but you really got to get better. Don't ask me what night vision you should run if you're not even running to begin with. You got to work out. That's so important. I think that translates to all the battles that we face in real life. But again, I'm young. I'm 27, so I could sound like a real douche to somebody. I apologize. It's easy for you to say you don't have kids. So.
The advice is worth what you paid for it, gentlemen.
Yeah.
And ladies, whoever, one lady that listens to our podcast. Hi, Maria.
I don't think Maria even listens to it either. She's like, I do it once in a while. I'm like, no. She's like,
that's great. Oh man, that's awesome.
I appreciate that, Chris. I especially like the whole concept of having like a good support structure as well too. We've talked about this in the podcast before, but like it's great to meeting like yourself online and then actually going to having a real conversation. It's a great way of like meeting people, but take it past that. Like, don't just be in your house all the time, right? Like go out and shoot with matches and make friends with people that you're going to go out and do long distance travel, from Michigan to West Virginia, once a year, that kind of stuff, right? Because chances are a lot of people are going through the same kind of stuff that you're going through, and they're also looking for people as well.
Absolutely, man. For all my people out there, when you're getting out of the military, even for the people who were in like a non-combat role like me, I was just in the regular old Navy. Call your friends. Just call them. Just check on them. And if they're going to call you back, understand people get busy. That's all it is. Just call your friends.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, Chris. Oh, go ahead. Tyler, you opened it up. I'm going to let you close it as well, too.
Well, I was going to say, thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Chris. Actually, Chris, why don't you go ahead and give us a shout out of your socials and your YouTube channel?
Sure thing. My YouTube channel is at Blackout Ballistics, and my Instagram is at Blackout Ballistics. But I want you guys to know all the silly stuff that I post goes on Instagram. But my YouTube is strictly informative. That's where I'm really there to help you guys out. But feel free to follow both.
That's awesome. And then, Phil, would you like to share any exciting updates to Acceptable Accuracy?
Yeah, so Acceptable Accuracy, we've made a lot of progress. Passion projects tend to grow, right? And then you're like, what's next? So we have a website officially, acceptableaccuracy.com. We've actually got a bit of tongue-in-cheek shooting team now. We actually have jerseys, so that's a thing.
I forgot about that.
That happened.
I ordered it. Don't worry. I just forgot I ordered it.
I totally forgot. I need to order one.
Oh no, dude! It's like a 4 to 6 week wait time on them too.
That's wild.
But
custom stuff, man.
Yep. Tyler also did some work. We are officially an LLC now as well too.
Thank you, Tyler. In the state of Michigan.
In the state of Michigan. Yep. Again, passion project. We don't make any money, but it's nice to have a LLC behind us. So, and then
we have an official email now too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so you can email us instead of a Gmail address. You can actually email us podcast@acceptableaccuracy.com, and that will actually go both to Tyler and I. So I've got it set up to distribute nicely. What else, Tyler, we got? Do you want to hit all the other social media stuff?
Yeah, so of course, thank you once again. Thank you so much for everyone for listening to us here on Acceptable Accuracy as we have this night vision episode with Blackout Ballistics, with Philip and Kyle and myself. Of course, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Click the notification bell. Subscribe, follow, rate us, and download. There's so many, man. I don't even know. So do all that stuff. It'll be great.
Tyler, what about sponsorship?
Oh, yeah.
Taco Bell.
Blackout Ballistics, please sponsor us. So
I don't know what I can send you. Maybe some stickers, some advice, a t-shirt, maybe.
When I'm recording, we'll give you the inside joke on it. So.
Okay.
I was gonna say
I don't know. I just
Steel Industries, please.
There we
sponsor.
go. but in all seriousness, What?
I thought for sure you were going to go with Taco Bell. I
don't know. I pulled a blank and all I saw was Blackout on my screen. I was like, oh, perfect. There we go. Oh.
Well, for the two of you that are still listening, we appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the flippity flip.
Yep. See you guys next time. Bye.